Through the dark, billowing smoke, I tried to see what was happening, and finally it would end. I took a step. Huh? Oh crap, sorry. I started at the end. This all started a few hundred years ago. Me? Oh, I am Toman Wilby. Yeah, I know it sucks, right? I am a mage, and have been one for a long time. What's a mage? How do I explain? Merlin, from ancient times, was an extremely powerful mage. So powerful he was an elite mage that was called a wizard. I can only hope to be that powerful one day, though from what my grandfather said, I will. Compared to Merlin, I am weak, though I have a secret that I know a lot of other mages would kill to know. Looking at the smoke, I nodded. As a matter of fact, a few had already tried, as many had been trying for centuries. I got a little far into my cups one night at the Mage Academy. You know, a school for mages. I opened my mouth about an ability I had, and that was the day I started fearing for my life. It wasn't a big deal, so I could increase my power and retain almost all my achieved levels. At least I thought it wasn't a big deal. Not till my then only friend tried to kill me and take it for his own. Betrayal can be a real eye-opener, mainly if you survive. I'm sorry to say that my friend didn't, so I was then wanted for questioning. Then suddenly I was wanted for murder, and then I was sentenced to death on sight. I went home, started to pack, and was on my way out when grandfather's voice stopped me cold. "Where in the hell do you think you are going?" I heard his older, gruff voice call out. "I'm leaving, Pops. They will be after me soon. I don't want you killed when they come for me," I said hurriedly as I tried to push my way out the door. And why would they do that?" his gruff voice asked. I hung my head. I was caught. If anything, grandfather would kill me mercifully. At least with him, it would be quick and nearly painless. Sighing, I opened up. I'd never lied to him and wasn't about to start. "I killed him, Pops," I blurted out. He tried to power siphon me, so I put up a defense, but he wouldn't stop. So I pushed back, I guess harder than I thought I would. I felt his heart slow, stop, and then explode. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't even try, it just happened. "I see," grandfather said. "You really expect me to believe that?" Dropping everything, I spread my arms, leaving myself open to him. A moment later, I felt his probe as he watched what had happened. "You see, Pops, I don't lie. You taught me that." Kneeling on the floor, I bowed my head. "I know you will make it as painless as possible, Pops. I'm ready." I felt a movement next to me, and then I was flying backward into the wall. "I thought I raised you better than that," came his bellowing voice. "Now get up. Come to the kitchen so we can plan." I looked up from the floor, a look of disbelief on my face. Pops wasn't going to kill me? He was an older, retired member of the council. Here, I thought it was his duty to take criminals in. "And unless you want to get smacked around again, I suggest you desist with the criminal thoughts." He growled to let me know he wasn't playing. Nah. Nodding rapidly, I got off the floor and walked to the table. "I thought it was your duty since you were once a council member. Sorry, Pops, I didn't mean to insult you. I forgot that they made you leave." Grandfather's face softened a bit as he nodded. "You were always a good boy. You have always listened to the ramblings and rumblings of an old man. I just wish your father had sooner. Then I feel he'd be alive today. I must admit he hid it for far longer than I thought he could." I could only stare at him. What in the world was he talking about? Okay, was all I could get out. Pops chuckled a moment, and a faraway look came to his eyes. "You know your father was extremely powerful. Even Merlin had said that his power only rivaled your father's." "Merlin? I thought you told me he died 100 years ago," I asked, a look of astonishment on my face. "Ah, that's just a story that he made up so he could enjoy life. Well, what he's got left. He's very alive and living on an island. Wish I could have gone with him. Would have too had this trouble with your father not started," Pop said, a tear starting to fall from one eye. "I couldn't leave. Not after your father died, especially as suspiciously as he did. Besides, I made a promise. As you know, we never break a promise. I nodded as I agreed with Pops. As far as I knew, no family member had ever broken a promise. Sitting at the table, I waited for Pops to sit and start to outline his plan. All right, Toman, we'll be on the run for quite a while, I am afraid. As I told you, your father had a lot of power. You, my boy, are exactly like him, though I think you might develop much faster after today. Again, all I could do was stare at Pops. I was like my father. I had no real power, no real abilities. Okay, if you say so, Pops, I replied. Pops looked as if he was about to backhand me again. You may not feel it, but you are. The problem is a few on the council don't wish for your power to mature. You might say it would show them in a bad light with a full investigation being started. One I know wouldn't leave the present council in place. Hell might even call for a few extinguishings. My eyes flew wide. There hadn't been one of those in a century. It was the second highest form of living punishment. To completely lose your powers, being banished to the human world. I shuddered. It was a fate worse than death for a magic user. So what are we going to do, Pops? I mean, they will eventually find us here. I was shaking, not really knowing what Pops was going to do. I think the best thing we can do is hide in the human world. I still have a few contacts there, so we should be safe. Hell might even get Merlin involved. He always did have a thing for the human world. Though he's only been resting a century, I might have to wait a few decades before I bother him, Pops said as his forehead furrowed in thought. If you're ready, we should go. Try not to use your magic till I tell you. I assume they are keyed into your energy signature, as I am sure they will mine before too long. I nodded as I was at a complete loss for what Pops was saying. I watched as he started to chant in the old language. I had just started to learn it this year, so I only understood some of it. Something about a portal, the human world, old friends, and maybe a power shift. Shaking my head a moment later, the air in front of us split, and then we were standing at the edge of a forest with a bunch of conical huts in front of us. Leaning over, I whispered, "Pops, where are we?" Those are the strangest plants I have ever seen. Smiling, Pops shook his head. They aren't plants. They are made of animal skin. The people here call them teepees. A tall, brown-skinned man, barely clothed, walked up to us. Namaste, mere achhe mitr. Bahut lamba samay gujar gaya. Hello, my good friend. It has been a long time. The man was talking to Pops. I stared at both of them but didn't understand a word. Pops, I don't understand. I will get us killed if we stay here. How in the hell? I started, and then Pops touched my head. The little... Afraid, the tall man said. He should... Few moments, Pops replied to the man. My mouth must have dropped open as the tall man smiled. I see. You used the quick. On him. Pops smiled as he nodded, looking at me. Yes, but on one, him, it takes longer. I was shaking my head. Most of what they said was coming through, but not all. Try not to hurt yourself, Toman. Just let it sink in. You also might find it helps you with the mage language if you allow it, Pops said with a huge smile as he watched me digest this newest information. Pops moved away with the tall man as they engaged in a discussion. I leaned against a tree with long green needle-like projections coming off it. The plants here were strange indeed, I thought. Where in the world were the leaves? Reaching up, I pulled the branch toward me. The odour was even stranger, not unpleasant but powerful. I sat and continued to watch Pops and the man when I felt a presence. Then several more. I started to form a shield when I was flying across the ground into another tree. I told you no magic! Pops growled at me, and then his face softened. I looked where he was staring, seeing that I had cut my arm. Then the pain set in. I raised my hand to heal it, only to have it smacked away. I don't think I can get used to not using my magic, Pops, I told him as he knelt beside me, starting a very low-power healing. As it began, I grimaced. This was something I wasn't used to. Pain. You better get used to it till I can erect a bubble. You can't use a single ounce of power. Pops said this with all seriousness. All I could do was stare at him with my mouth hanging open. No magic! I would die. I hadn't gone a day in over 100 years without using magic. Pops, how am I going to survive? I know nothing of the non-magic skills. Growling, then shaking his head, he replied, I'll teach you. It might take a few years, but you might actually like it. Till you can shift your power signature, you will not use any of it. To do so will be like sending a beacon to those who wish to destroy us and our family. Remember, this is real. You might not think so, but it is. After I erect the bubble, we will start your training. We have to get you stronger. You're barely at mage strength right now. I intend to change that before they find us. Reaching out, Pops's hand started to glow as he touched me. It was warm as a tingling feeling shot through me. What was that, Pops? I asked. I want you to make the twig float from my hand, Pops said. I smirked as I waved my hand at it. Then, to my astonishment, nothing happened. Swallowing hard as tears started to run from my eyes, I looked at Pops. My God, Pops! I've no powers. What will I do? Now, I was almost in a panic. Without my powers, I was nothing. You'll be fine, Pops said. That's just a dampening spell I used on you, though I suspect it won't last long. My mouth hung agape as I tried to reach my powers. Pops was right. I could feel and touch them but couldn't use them. I felt almost defenseless. How in the hell was I going to survive? Again, I was flying across the ground, though easier. I told you I'll teach you. I forgot just how stubborn and thick-skinned this family is, Pops said as he helped me to stand. We've been given a place. Don't wander off. You should be fine. I nodded as Pops led me to a conical hut. What had he said? Was it a teepee? Inside, it was a bit homey, though I was aghast that there were no beds, tables, or chairs. How in the hell were we going to live? Pops just chuckled at my thoughts. I had to remember Pops could hear almost all my thoughts, especially now that my powers were nearly non-existent. As I said, I'll teach you. We'll make a table for you to write on. As for beds, the skins are a lot softer than the mage beds we slept in. Trust me, after a day or two, you'll learn to appreciate them a hell of a lot more. Again, my mouth was hanging open. Was that actual physical work? My God, I would die. I had never done physical work. I looked at Pops. I knew I was young, only about 200 years old, but I shook my head. Why did I think Pops was taking advantage of me? It will take me a few months to set up the bubble. If I feel you use your magic, I will severely punish you. Do I make myself clear? Pops told me. I sighed, shrugged, and bounced across the ground again. I had to learn to be more positive, I guess, or Pops would beat the hell out of me. No, I won't beat the hell out of you unless you deserve it. Now we start your first lesson, gathering wood, Pops said as I nodded. I guessed there was no way out of it, especially if I wanted to stay alive. Pops told me where to go and what to pick up. I think he did, as I was barely listening to him. I gathered small sticks and branches, not paying attention to what I picked up. Half an hour later, I stopped, deciding I had enough. I turned around to head back. It was then I noticed I didn't know where in the hell I was. I dropped all the wood I had and did a standing circle, my mouth hanging open. Pops! I yelled, then listened but heard nothing. Damn it. I had been walking for over half an hour without noticing where I was going. I sunk to my knees and buried my face in my hands. I was dead. It was at that moment I heard a low giggling. The giggling got a little louder, and then a tiny head popped out from behind a tree in front of me. "Who are you?" I asked. The small head popped out as a young brown-skinned child looked at me with a questioning look. "I cannot, you are saying?" the young-looking boy said. Sighing, I decided I needed to enlist the younger person's help. "I am lost," I said, trying to concentrate as I spoke, hoping that whatever Pops had done would kick in soon. "Oh," the other said. "Lost? The village is right there," pointing behind him. "You have been walking in circles, not paying attention." My eyes widened as I nodded, so Pops had been looking out for me. "I have to get back. My name is—" I started. "Toman, I know. Father told me you and your grandfather would stay with the tribe for a while. I am Nazi. I hope we can be friends," said the young boy as he smiled. "Friends," I repeated, something I was seriously lacking at the moment. "I would like that, Nazi. I have no friends at the moment. I hope being my friend doesn't land you or your people in trouble. I never want to be the cause of that," I told the young boy as I hung my head. I suddenly felt a small hand on my chest as Nazi approached me. "I do not fear being your friend. I will enjoy having a friend also. I too haven't any either at the moment, as you said." The boy smiled at me, and then turned to go to the village. I had regathered all the wood and turned when I heard a low growl behind me. Turning, I saw a huge, furry black animal on all fours. Then it growled again, rising up on its back legs. My eyes got large as Nachi yelled for me to run. Just looking at the creature, I knew that neither of us would make the village before it had the both of us. "Go, Nachi! I'll hold it off! Bring help!" I heard the boy start yelling as he began to dash for the village. I started to throw the pieces of branches at the furry menace. I could see that the creature was starting to get far angrier than it had been before. Finally, I was almost out of the branches as the beast roared and began to rush me. Standing my ground, I swung the largest limb I had at it. The problem is it broke quickly over the back of the creature. "Shit," I thought. "I won't make it, but my friend is safe now." The creature hit me at full speed, knocking me to the ground and raking my side with one of its massive claws. I thought I heard shouting as I started to kick weakly at the creature, then nothing. "I am dead," I thought as I felt myself falling further and further into the darkness. I opened my eyes, feeling the worst pain I had in my life. My entire face was hurting, and every bone in my body felt broken. I found it challenging to breathe, and I had to urinate badly, but couldn't even raise my arm, let alone my hand. I tried to turn my head but found it was tied to the bed, as was the rest of my body. Looking as far over as I could barely see, and my vision was still blurry. Then suddenly it hit me. I was in a bed. Pops had told me there were no beds here. What gives? So I see that the unlikely hero is alive and awake. I heard the thoughts of Pops. "When I said to get used to not using your powers, I didn't mean for you to get killed in the first few days that we are here. I'm sorry, Pops, but it just seemed like the right thing to do for my friend. I knew we couldn't reach the village, so I stayed. I know you will punish me, Pops, but I would do it again." I told Pops, though even this was taxing to me. "How could I be mad at you? You have shown far more backbone than your father did at your age. Young Nachi is lucky to have as fiercely a devoted a friend as you." I heard Grandfather respond. I nodded, then let the exhaustion retake me. The next time I awoke, I was still hurting, but not as bad. As soon as I opened my eyes, I could feel Pops's magic around me, healing me. Pops and the tall man I had seen him talking to the first day walked in a moment later. "It is good to see that you are still alive. It would be a shame for one as fearless as you to die," the tall man said. "I am afraid it is in his nature, Tall Bear." Sighing, Pops went on. "I am so unsure of what to do with him now. He still doesn't realize what he has done or become." I just stared at the two of them as if they were insane. What in the hell were they on about? I hadn't done anything special, maybe a little brave, but nothing special. Pops looked over at me and shook his head, looking over at me with an incredulous look. "You have done far more than you think, boy. We'll have to discuss this later and its implications." Pops's thoughts came. Implications? Again, I thought Pops and the one called Tall Bear were losing their minds. Pops gave me an extremely stern look and then shook his head. I was shocked when several brown-skinned females came in and started to wash me, removing my clothes a piece at a time. I was still a little modest as I tried to knock their hands away. "Toman!" Pops's thunderous voice came to me. "They aren't going to hurt you. Allow them to clean you." Sighing, I relented as they quickly continued until they reached my side. A sudden shooting pain went through me as I gasped and tried to jerk away from them. I felt a ripping sensation, and then the females were yelling about bleeding and pressing several pieces of cloth to my side. This, of course, hurt like hell as I gasped again, and then fell back to the bed, panting. "I'm sorry, Toman. I thought you were further healed than you are. I will not make this mistake again." Pop's thoughts continued as I nodded, trying not to pass out again as the pain in my side started to increase. "I thought I was better, Pops. I feel I have made it worse. I can feel as if I ripped something loose inside," I told Pops. Pop's eyes went wide as he concentrated, staring at my side. Shaking his head, I felt a different healing start within me. "It will be all right now, Toman. I see what I missed. I'm taking another look at the rest. Sleep now for another few days, then it won't hurt." I felt the darkness coming up to welcome me again, and then I thought, a few days. I had been here a few days. Then I sighed as the magic started in again. As Pops had said, it was again a few days later when my eyes opened. This time, most of the pain was gone, though I did have a nagging pain in my side. I slowly brought my legs off the bed, fearing I might tear something else. Nazi appeared at the opening of the teepee me and Pops were in. "I can't stay long. I just wanted to thank you for saving my life. I fear we won't be allowed to be alone together again." I looked at him with a strange look. "I saved your life, and they are afraid that you wouldn't be safe with me. Why in the hell would they think that?" "Toman, you don't understand. No one told you, did they?" Nati said, looking around. "Told me? Told me what?" I asked, even more perplexed. "My father is Chief Tallbear. Nazi related to me." "Okay, so why wouldn't you and I be allowed to be alone together? You are safe with me, Nachi," I told him. Shaking his head, Nachi shivered a moment before he said, "You still don't understand. I am the chief's daughter. I have been pledged to be your wife when I am of age." My mouth must have dropped open as she started to giggle. "A girl. A freaking girl. Great," I thought as I threw my hands up in defeat. Just what I needed. A female. What was I going to do with a female? I shook my head at Nazi, but still had difficulty accepting that he was a she. The whole time I had thought she was a young teen boy. Then what she had said hit me. Married. What in the hell was she talking about? "What in the hell do you mean you are pledged to marry me when you are of age? I made no such damn pledge. I have half a mind to—" At that moment, I noticed that Nietzsche was starting to cry. Ah, crap, that's all I need, a weepy female. "What in the hell is wrong?" I almost shouted, my frustration getting the best of me. This, of course, made Nazi cringe and withdraw away from me. "You do not wish to be pledged to me. Do you want to dishonor my father and me like this? I would be subjected to being a mahila kaupayog, bekar." She was whispering with a look of horror on her face. "You saved my life in such a brave fashion only to reject me, to condemn me to becoming a mahila kaupayog bekar." Tears were starting to fall faster from her eyes as I was really feeling like shit now. "You misunderstand," I cried. "I don't want to make you whatever you just said. I am grateful for your friendship, but I don't want to be forced to marry you." Nazi could only stare at me as if I had lost my mind. "Marriage is the most fulfilling thing a human can do. Why are you so against it? You really do want me to be put into a life of being a mahila kaupayog bekar?" "First off, I don't understand what that is. Second," I started. In a rush, she angrily shouted, "It is a woman to be used only, by anyone that wishes to, a worthless one. only good for the pleasure of all others. Being the chief's daughter, it would be far harder for me. Many would be far more cruel than normal. Many hate father and would take much of that hatred out upon me. Father wouldn't be able to do anything. Please, Toman. Nazi was begging at my feet. Please do not make me live that hell. Sighing, I knew I was beat even before I started. All right, I'll accept you, though I will not like it in the least. Nazi's eyes opened wide as she stared at me. You are an unused one also. Bowing low, she stated in a low voice, I am honoured to be your first. What we will give each other goes far beyond any words that can be spoken. I must go. Bowing low to me, she continued. Toman the fearless. Then she was gone. Sighing, I could only shake my head. So I see you finally found out. I heard my pop's thoughts. No, I will not reveal that she was there, though she shouldn't have been. As I said, we must develop our power, always respecting their customs and traditions. I know. I tried to dissuade Tall Bear from this, though I felt that he would have been severely insulted had I pursued it more than I did. By the great divine boy. Here only a few days and already you are a hero and you damn near died. It's not like I did this on purpose, Pops, I thought back. Like everything else, it happened. It's always like this, almost like I am cursed or hexed. Pops was quiet for a few moments, then responded, You may be right, boy. I'll have to look into it. Shaking my head, I couldn't believe what in the hell was going on. I was pledged to be married to the chief's daughter. I had almost been killed by a giant furry animal with claws larger than my hands. I was being hunted by the council, who had issued a death sentence on me. I was forced to run from my dimension. Oh yeah, did I mention that I also for the moment had 2 powers? Again, I shook my head. Yeah, I was screwed. I arose and walked out of the conical hut. I still had trouble remembering its name. I started to walk around looking for my grandfather. Asking a passing male, they grunted, looking me up and down with disgust. Then they pointed toward a clearing. Entering the clearing, Pops was hard at work, doing something. Hell, I had absolutely no idea what he was up to. I walked further into the clearing, expecting him to say something, but he didn't till I was almost even with him. I thought I said that no one was. It's you, Toman. I am over half done with the bubble. In another few days, we should be able to start on your training. Pops told me. I nodded, and then I realised that Pops hadn't been able to feel me. My God, I thought. Was he using all of his power to create this? Then again, when I first entered the clearing, it hadn't felt like Pops. So that was what he meant about changing the signature of a person's power. It also might explain why he hadn't smacked me around for a bit. I was flying across the clearing, stopping just short of a tree. Damn. Forgot he could hear me when I was close, no matter what. Sighing, he appeared next to me. I swear you are going to be the absolute death of me. I love you to death, boy, though this will kill us both. You need to start building your confidence damn quick. You think the others here will just let you walk on them? My eyes got wide as I realised what he meant. So that's why they were so disgusted by me. I am nothing to them except for the one deed. Though to many of them, it is just that one deed. I said more to myself than Pops. Pops's eyes got wide for a moment and then he nodded. So you are using what is in your head for more than something to put a hat on. You might survive then, might, Pops said, and then he smiled at me. I will try to teach you as soon as I can. For now, try not to get attacked by a bear again. Bear? So that's what that furry animal was called, I said to myself. Best you remember that. There are other creatures out there that are not as large but just as deadly. There is another family of animals. Pops showed me pictures of other furry, smaller but far faster animals. They had long claws, pointed rather than round ears, and growled higher than the bear. It appeared they also hissed. Pop said some were called bobcats, and others, larger ones, were cougars. There was also one like the cougar called a panther. I shook my head at all the images, good God. It seemed as if it was far more dangerous here than in the magic dimension. I spoke up and told Pop so. He sighed, trying to explain to me that this was life. As with the magic world, there was an order of the strongest to the weakest. Right now, he went on, I was at the very far end, the weaker end. Merlin, on the other hand, was almost at the complete opposite end. You mean to tell me Merlin is as strong as I am weak? I asked Pops. Yes, I think you might be able to reasonably say that, Pop said nonchalantly. Again, I could only stare at Pops as if he was crazy. I knew that Pops was what was called an average magic user. I thought about it briefly, and then my mouth dropped open. You are an average magic user, and Merlin was your friend? Merlin is an elite magic user? I thought all elites put themselves above all others. Pops's face suddenly twisted in a mask of rage. No! The fact that a few elite users are that way doesn't signify that all elite users are that way. As a matter of fact, there are only about 10 I have ever heard of being that way. I'm afraid that Morgan Le Fay was the worst of the elites that felt that way. I started to tremble, but no one in the magic dimension hadn't heard of her. A long-time bitter enemy of Merlin, I was about to say so, when I saw that Pops was shaking his head no. No? It has been known for years that she was a... Again, Pops was shaking his head. Morgan Le Fay was much like you when she came to Merlin to learn, Pops related. As I remember it, I met him not long after that, as you about, drove him to madness with her questions. Pops looked at me and smirked. Quite a lot like you are now. She was almost the same level as you are now, though the council wasn't riddled by absolute power seekers and fools back then. Pops's mask of rage quickly returned. I intend for you to survive, to find out all that has been done to our family. I looked at Pops's face and took a few steps back. I had no power at the moment. I really didn't want to get burned by him if he lost control, even for a moment. Pops sensed this and was powering down immediately. Sorry, Pops, without any power I feel far more helpless than I was when I was in bed. I'm sorry, Toman. It angers me that no one has been able to prove all they have done to extinguish our family. I want to make sure that you have a chance to correct all the wrongs you have done to us. If nothing else, let the entire magic world know everything they have done. I looked closer at Pops. There was more going on here than met the eyes. Though I knew getting anything out of Pops was worse than pulling teeth. Pops sent me back to our house hut. Hell, I was still unsure of what it was. I'd barely made the inside when the weakness hit me again. Laying down, I was out in no time. It had to be a few hours later when I jerked awake. Something was wrong, though I couldn't put my finger on it for my life. Walking through the opening, I saw several males heading into the forest. Following against my better judgment, I ran as fast as I could, barely keeping the group in sight. A few minutes later, I slowed, as did the group, standing in a circle around 2 other brown-skinned young males. As I looked out from my hiding place, I saw the 2 in the centre standing apart with drawn knives. Even as I watched, one of them walked about with a confidence that seemed to rub me the wrong way. The male was so confident it made me want to vomit. Then they both lunged at each other. I watched, fascinated, as they thrust, swiping away at each other. The confident male moved with ease away from the other. Finally, the other male stumbled as he had several cuts on his chest and arms. The confident male moved in, placing his knife at the throat of the other. "Yield!" he shouted. The other male tried to get loose till the knife at his throat drew a small prick of blood. "I yield!" he shouted, dropping his knife. The confident one pushed the other to the ground, raising his arms and putting his foot on the other. Then he roared out a primal yell as he looked down with an almost bloodlust in his eyes. I knew the confidence was going to kill the other. Jumping out, grabbing the knife of the beaten one, I swung up, blocking the downward thrust of the victor. The victor's eyes grew wide as he then swung at me. For some strange reason, I could almost tell what he would do and easily dodged him with a slight chuckle. Anger made his face hot, so he decided to try another tactic. So the great Toman the Fearless had decided to interfere. Fight me, O great Toman, Or are you afraid?" He sneered. I just laughed at him. "Afraid? Of you? Please. You boast about beating one much younger than you. What a great warrior." I laughed again, this time harder. I, at that moment, realized what in the hell was I doing? How did I know how to fight and make him miss? "You dare to laugh at Malak the Brave? Come then, show me just how fearless you are." He spit out. "Unlike you, I do not like to go against defenseless opponents. I prefer a challenge," I said as I turned to walk away. I knew this would probably make him attack. With a wild scream, I felt him fly forward, dropping down. I tripped him, watching as he fell on his face. "I will kill you for those insults," he said as he flipped up and started to stalk me. I waited almost till he was upon me, then I sidestepped, chopping the knife from his hand. His eyes were huge when I picked his knife up. Throwing it at his feet, I waited. With a twisted grin, he snatched it up and started to stalk me again. I looked around the circle that had grown completely silent. Then I saw a face with a significant amount of shock. Nachi. Great, I thought that was all I needed. Thinking I was distracted, my opponent rushed toward me with his knife at a higher, more secure position. Shaking my head, I sidestepped at the last moment and then moved behind him, twisting his free arm. "Unless you wish me to break it, I suggest you yield," I whispered in his ear. A look of indignation quickly spread across his face. "Never!" he shouted. "Fine," I shouted as I wrenched his arm up even harder. A second later, I heard the satisfying pop as the shoulder dislocated. Howling at the top of his voice, he pulled free of me, trying to catch me again with the knife in his good arm. Sighing, I stood stock, still awaiting his next attack. Another lunge, and I had his arm behind him as I wrenched the knife loose. Holding it to his throat, I growled, "Yield! No! Kill me!" He was gasping out through the pain. "I am not a lust-filled killer as you are. I think I'll allow the tribe to decide your fate." With that, I wrenched that arm up, but I didn't stop this time as I heard the bone snap. This time he screamed, then slumped forward. A moment later, several of the male adults walked out of the forest. Their eyes were huge after what they had seen and heard. Tall Bear was among them as he nodded. "You gave him a fair chance to yield, not once but twice." Turning, he looked at another male with the others. "It is suggested that you teach your son Malak better. Fighting a superior enemy that offers freedom after defeat is a rare thing." The man nodded to the chief, then stared at me with complete hatred. I could only shake my head when he gathered his bully of a son and moved off toward the village. That's when I saw Pops looking at me with a slightly open mouth. Then I felt a probe as his mouth fell open even more. "I knew about your level of learning and retention ability as many of the males in the family have had it. Fortunately, I do not, though it might come in handy at the moment. I did not know that you could gain skills just by watching. Refrain from letting others learn of this. You were lucky today that you were hidden as you were." Pop's thoughts said to me. I was wondering how I suddenly knew everything that he was doing. It was like what he knew was suddenly in my mind. "You say all I have to do is see someone perform them?" I asked, surprised. "I believe that it is. I am unsure now. I fear this will make you even more hated." Pops told me. "It's okay, Pops. I am used to it by now. I have been hated by most for quite a long time." I told Pops, "You are going to have to watch your back, Toman. That man isn't going to let this go all that easily. I am afraid the son is very much like the father, though he will give you a wide berth for a while," Pops advised me. I started to make my way back toward the village when the male that had been defeated caught up to me. "Toman," I heard him say when he was closer. When I stopped and nodded, he did so a few feet away. "I just wanted to thank you. Had you not interfered, I know I'd be dead. Friends?" I looked at the smallish male, then made it seem like I was thinking about it as he withdrew a bit. "Yes, though the last time I made a friend with whom I thought was a male, I ended up being pledged to marry." I looked over the male before me as he gave me a curious look. Sorry, I had to make sure. I don't want to mistake another female for a male. I thought he was going to get mad, then he smiled. I see you being new here, unused to the customs. I think I can see your mistake. Though, you know, she did dress like a boy quite a bit. Here, he smiled widely, then continued. I don't think her father will allow that any longer. Atohi. The young male suddenly said, Glad to meet you, Atohi. I'm just glad you are a male and not a female. At this, Atohi started to laugh. I believe that Nachi will now be the envy of every young female of age. Facing the bear is one thing, but defeating Malak. Atohi shook his head. You made quite a few friends today. I am also afraid you made a few enemies, though not as many as you did. Come. Atohi led me down a path that suddenly emptied near a slow-moving river. Staying low, Atohi stopped and pointed to a spot near the shore. As I scanned the shore, my sight was suddenly met by the sight of about 20 naked females. They ranged in age from about 15 to 60. My face must have gotten red as Atohi started to laugh. Did you see her? He asked. See her? See who? I asked, confused. Nachi, your promised mate, Atohi told me. I only shook my head no as he grunted in frustration. Pulling me up a bit, he pointed toward a female at the edge of the others. My mouth dropped open. It had only been a few days, but she looked different. I was staring at her. I had never really been interested in females as I had thrown myself into learning at the insistence of Pops. I felt a stirring that I hadn't before. I felt my heart beat faster as I saw all of her. Then, the strangest thing was that she turned almost as if she could feel me looking straight at me. She lathered up with a little half-smile, covering most of her body. I felt Atohi as he tugged me to the ground. Did they see you? He asked in a panic. We have to go before they find us. You have obviously never had several females beat you with a Jatakadar Chadi. I shook my head in confusion. A what? I said, completely at a loss for what he was talking about. Come, he said as he started to drag me through the brush and forest. Finally, near the village, I stopped him. What in the hell was that, that change thing? His eyes got large as he quieted me. He whispered, It is a long, hard branch they will beat us with. I have been caught once looking at the females at the river. It is a bad way to end the day. The beat on you till they think you have learned not to again. I nodded as I was starting to understand. You obviously haven't learned then, have you? I asked him. A wide grin spread across his face as he nodded Tom Tien. It was worth the beating. I got to see so many women unclothed. Besides, I know for a fact that they do it also. It's just that, for some reason, they aren't really punished. Most males just walk around proud when they know the females are watching. I just shook my head as we headed back into the village. This would take some time. Atohi left me as he headed back into the village. I was still standing there beside the trail. Today had undoubtedly been an eye-opener, that was for sure. Thinking about Nachi's naked body, I shook my head as I felt parts of my anatomy grow to painful lengths. So you have made a new friend, and this is good. Just remember, you are not to reveal who or what you are. Once I have the bubble in place, no one can see or feel what we do within it. I heard Pops in my head. By the way, what the young Atohi said is true. They really do beat you. Don't take the threat lightly. My mouth was hanging open when I heard movement behind me on the trail. Several females were coming, stopping to ask if I had seen a pair of males entering the village a short time ago. Still a little dazed, I told them no, truthfully. The older females looked at me, nodded, and moved on. Nazi was at the back of the group, smiling slightly as she went past. So she is as trusting of you as I thought she might be. This is a good thing. Toman, we have to do all we can to protect these people. What they are doing for us could guarantee their destruction. I'm sure I don't have to remind you of that fact. Pop's thoughts came to me again. I am doing all I can, Pops. Like I said, it feels like I have a curse on me or something. I was starting to get frustrated with everything that had gone on. I know I told you I'd look into it. Try to carry on for now. I suggest that you try not to bring attention to yourself anymore, Pops told me. As if I am trying to, Pops. I was almost shouting at him in my mind. Just then I heard more movement down the trail. Moving back, I soon saw several younger males moving toward the village. One in particular drew my attention, Malak, with his one arm in a sling. Moving past only a few gave me a heated look, though Malak's could have melted metal. Stopping before me, he growled, "You will regret not killing me, outsider. Your days here are numbered, and I shall make certain of that." I nodded, unafraid, spitting back. "Only if you are as much of a coward as I think you are and attack me in my sleep." This, of course, drew more than a few snickers from some of the males with him. "We shall see when you are dead at my feet. Not unless you bring a small army because you are afraid to face me again. No, I think that you should just sulk away and leave those of us with real honour alone," I said in an even lower voice again, drawing a few snickers. Malak's face was red from anger as several others dragged him away. I heard many of them whispering to him that I would kill him the way he was. "No, I do not bully or fight the weak and helpless like he does and is," I snapped out at the few that had spoken. Their eyes wide, they all quickly dragged him past, leaving me alone again with my thoughts. I thought I was alone with my thoughts when I heard a sigh. "I am beginning to see what you mean, Toman. Just standing there, trouble has found you." Oh shit. I had forgotten Pops had been talking to me. "See, Pops, I told you I never look for it. It seems to seek me out." I thought to Pops, still seething with anger from the audacity of Malak and his cronies. "That's another thing, Toman. Pops told me, your power tends to be linked to your emotions." My mouth dropped open. "Pops, are you talking about what I think you are? My God, no wonder the council is trying to kill me." "What are you talking about?" I heard Pops question. "Pops, I am not so stupid that I have even heard of wild power." I thought back to him, then gasped. I am a danger to everyone. Now, tears were starting to fall from my eyes. I am a beast. I deserve to die. I gasped again as I felt an extra hard slap across my face. Again I was flying across the expanse of the forest. I stopped at Pop's feet, an extremely angry look on his face. "I am never to hear that crap out of your mouth again. Do you hear me? You disrespect your entire family by doing it. I am training you. Therefore you are no beast, though I still reserve the right to end your life if I have to. Now get your ass up. Get more firewood. Watch where you are going and what you're doing." Picking myself up, I nodded with my head down, tears still falling. "I'll do my best, Pops." I moved off, keeping all my thoughts to a minimum. I spent the rest of the day watching several of the older males as they practiced with their bows. Then I watched a few as they were making the same type of bows. Gathering up a few pieces of choice wood, I started to do what I had watched. Soon, I had a rather large bow that I could hardly draw. A Tohi walked up a few moments later, his eyes huge. "Toman, what are you doing with that? We are not allowed to have weapons of the adults yet." "What are you talking about? I made this, though I am having trouble drawing it," I told him as his eyes got even larger. "That isn't possible," a Tohi said, astonished. "That skill takes many moons to accomplish." He took the bow I had made in his hands, touching it like a sacred relic. "This is a fine quality weapon. You are joking with me, I see. You found this and were just looking at it." No. I made this, but it really wasn't all that hard," I told a Tohi as his mouth fell open even further. "I must show this to father. It is as fine of work as his are," a Tohi said, then stopped when I reached out and snatched the bow from his hands. "No," I told a Tohi. "I am already considered to be an unusual oddity in the village. I don't want to make things worse, showing a skill that rivals one of the older males." "This would bring you great honour," Atohi said. "No, it would have those not already against me convinced that I am more evil. We will keep this between the both of us. Possibly later we can say something, but not now." I told Atohi honestly. Shaking my head, I hoped he would keep his mouth shut. Knowing my luck, though, he'd let it slip easily. Crap, I thought I really needed a silence spell. Shaking my head, I walked away. I could hope anyway. A few days later, Pops completed the bubble, as he called it. Taking me inside, he waved his hand over me. "I want you to close your eyes. Feel inside. Feel all your power. Look closer. See the energy as it comes out of you." I did as Pops said, looking inward. And then I kept going until I was to a place where a myriad of colourful strands were coming out of what appeared to be a hole. "I see it, Pops. The hole from which all my power comes. What do you want me to do?" I felt as if Pops was shocked. "You can actually see where your power is coming from. Astonishing. You are as far as your father was. Look at your power. I want you to feel how it vibrates. Good. Now I want you to alter it so that it is completely different from what it is now," Pops told me. Nodding, I felt the slight vibrations. Reaching out, I made the strands vibrate more than the slight vibration they had. I heard Pops gasp, and then I felt a barrier go around me. "Like that, Pops?" I asked. "No!" I heard him shout. "You have to make them vibrate slightly. The harder they vibrate, the easier it is for them to find you." I nodded as I touched each coloured strand, each in turn, slowing to what they had been. Again, I heard Pops gasp as all the strands slowed. Again, I touched all of them simultaneously, feeling them all vibrate slightly differently. "There, Pops, that better?" I asked. "I didn't think you'd get it in the first try. You'll have to show me how you did it later." I nodded as I reached out to Pops and saw all the colours coming from him. Then I noticed something strange. It appeared as if part of Pop's power was cut off. Shaking my head, I could see that the ability to actually see the power of another was turned off. Shrugging, I reached out and gently opened it up. Then I withdrew. No sense getting smacked again. We went for a few more hours, with Pops showing me how to change my signature. We were finally finished when Pops gasped out. "What in the hell?" Pops suddenly said. "My God, oh my God, it's just as he described it." Then Pops looked directly at me. "Oh shit! What have you done to me, Toman?" I withdrew, afraid that Pops was going to actually kill me now. Shaking, I told him, I'm sorry, Pops. I thought you'd want to be able to see. I'm so sorry, Pops." I bowed my head, expecting the pain any moment. "This is what you were telling me, the colour strands. My God, your father used to talk about them. I thought he had lost his mind. I see now. Each strand is the power of a user. My God, Toman, you have twice what I do," Pops said. "Many of yours are blocked, as most mages are," I told him. "I have never met another with as many open as me. Even the headmaster doesn't have as many as you, Pops. I am afraid that you might discover a few more abilities in the next few days if you open that one." Pops was rubbing his chin as he thought about this. "You have no idea what they might be?" he asked. "No, sorry, Pops. I can in a day or two, but not right now," I told him. "Just how long have you had this ability?" Pops asked. I was quiet for a moment as I thought about it. "I think it started a few years ago. It seems the more I use it, the stronger it gets. It is like watching the guys fighting the other day. The more I watched, the more I could actually do it," I told an open-mouthed Pops. "So the fight was no fluke. You were watching them before you jumped in, weren't you?" Pops asked. "Of course, Pops, I told you I would keep out of everyone's way. You know that as hated as I am, I don't want to give anyone more ammunition to use against me," I told Pops, a little exasperated. Pops nodded and then looked at me with a questioning look. "All right, Toman. What else have you been watching?" I must have had an extremely startled look as Pops started to chuckle. I shook my head. How in the hell was he always able to do that? Sighing, I told him, "I watched several older men making bows today. It was suddenly easy looking, so I made one of my own." I reached out and pulled it to me. Pops nodded his head when I did this with ease. Pops looked it over and started to nod his head approvingly. Then his head snapped up. "Who else knows?" Again, my mouth dropped open as I stared at Pops. A Tohi walked up after I finished it. He said I should show his father I would be honoured by it. I told him no. I was already considered an unusual oddity in the village. I didn't want to make things worse, showing a skill that rivaled one of the older males. Pop's head was nodding, till I got to the part about a Tohi. I told him I wished I had my magic to do a silence spell. "No, you should give him the benefit of the doubt. You can always deny that you could, though that might make an enemy of a Tohi. I just hope he can keep his mouth shut. I have enough going against me now without more being added on." I told Pops, a little worried that he would have to run interference again for me. "I'm not really sure, Pops. Without my abilities, I just can't read him." Pops smiled, then said, "You'll learn, Toman, you'll learn. It shouldn't take long if you start to listen more and complain less." Finishing up for the day, I left Pops, walked around, and took my first look around the village. At that moment, I realised just how far at the fringe of the village our place was. As I was advancing into the village, I was in awe of how organised these people were. Here I thought they were near savages. Damn, was I wrong. I soon noticed a teepee toward the middle of everything, somewhat larger than the rest. I started to head that way, curious, when several warriors stopped me. "So, Toman, you are trying to get a look at your new bride-to-be?" My eyes widened when I asked, "You mean that is Tall Bear's home?" The men chuckled slightly, then nodded. "Many of us have only been made aware that you are unused to our customs. One that you might want to remember, young Toman, is that you are not allowed to see or be alone with your future bride. At least not without her father there." The others with him nodded, though their eyes were shining with a bit of mischief. "So, do you want to see?" the man asked. I thought about it momentarily, and something a Tohi had said popped into my head. "No, I don't think I want a Jatakadar Chuddy used on me at the moment," I told the men. All of them got huge smiles on their faces, then shrugged as they started to move off. "Just remember, young Toman, sometimes the pain is well worth what earned it in the first place." I looked at him as if he'd lost his mind. The beating they'd give me was nothing compared to what Pops would do to me. So, continuing on, avoiding Tall Bear's teepee, I nodded to several young males who had been there when I defeated Malak. Many walked up to me, patting me on the back. A few minutes later, I happened to walk past another large teepee. Nodding, I moved past when I heard a voice. "You are not welcome here, outsider," the voice said. "You should go back to where you came from." Turning, I was staring straight into the eyes of Malak's father. "You would like that, wouldn't you? Then your son could bully the rest of the younger boys," I said between clenched teeth. "I am not here to fight. I am only walking. It is you that is making threatening motions toward me," I spit out, disgusted that the man approved of his son bullying the weak. "I have every right to kill you where you stand. The injury you have done to my son, my family, and I will not be forgiven." With that, the man drew a large knife and advanced toward me. "So, I see you are an afraid woman," I said, remembering a taunt from the circle fight. "You attack an unarmed opponent. Are you that afraid of me? One much younger than you?" Reaching beside his leg, he drew a large, sinister-looking knife. Tossing it to me, he laughed. "There you are now armed. Let's see if you can defeat me as easily as you did, my son." Still laughing, he lunged towards me. Waiting till the last minute, I sidestepped. The man laughed as he reversed direction and went with me, swinging at my throat. Ducking down, I brought both hands flat as hard as I could into his stomach. I was surprised when the man only grunted when I hit him. Smiling bigger, he stalked toward me again, swinging, trying to cut me across the chest. I barely avoided the swipe as it flashed nearby. Still stalking me, the man laughed louder. "You are good, young Toman, though I think you aren't good enough." Suddenly, the man went high, aiming again at my throat. Just as suddenly, he pivoted, swinging low directly toward my stomach. Falling back flat on the ground, I brought both my legs up as hard as I could into his solar plexus. I had, of course, sacrificed my position as he cut my leg. The man gasped, then fell back, gagging and vomiting. Getting up, I limped to the man, drawing back my hand and chopping him in the back of the neck. I hadn't noticed that more than a few warriors were watching. That's when I heard the gasps as the man hit the ground hard, unconscious. "Father!" I heard Malik yell as loud as he could, racing out of their teepee. Looking up at me, I could see the hatred and anger on his face. "I will kill you," he said as he took a step towards me. "You can try with only half an arm, though I guarantee I will hurt you far worse than last time. I am nowhere as hurt as you if you wish to try," I said menacingly. "I suggest you take your father away from here before others want to make an example of him." "They wouldn't dare. My father is a great warrior. No one would touch him," Malak growled at me. "I wouldn't be so sure. He attacked one much younger than him. I am not even an adult yet. How do you think the tribe will view this, especially after I, a mere youth, knocked him out? I would say he has disgraced himself enough today. Much as you did in our fight." I spat at Malak as I started to turn away. I heard a shrieking howl, and then I saw Malak start toward me with his father's knife. "I will gut you. No one speaks of my father like that." I sighed as I watched him advance. I feigned high, then swept low, knocking the knife from his hand. Bringing my own to his throat, I snarled, "Yield!" "Never. I will never surrender to an outsider like you," Malak yelled back. "Fine," I said as I cuffed him alongside his head, knocking him out also. Dropping Malak, I started to limp away when I caught Pops's eyes. Oh shit, Pops is going to skin me alive. "You seem to be injured again, young Toman," I heard Tall Bear say behind me. Looking down, I saw for the first time that I was cut, but nowhere as deeply as I thought I had been. Bowing low to Tall Bear, I replied, "Yes, sir. I apologize for all the trouble I seem to be running into. I'll try." About that time, I felt the world start to spin as I got lightheaded. Damn. Guess I lost more blood than I thought. Several hands grabbed me as I made a beeline for the ground. Shaking my head, I thought this was no way to get better acquainted with everyone. It was several hours later, though. It might as well have been days when I jerked awake. Disorientated momentarily, I stared at the walls around me, lost. Boy, I don't know what I will do with you. "Hey, Pops, I was just walking when he started making threatening motions toward me," I replied. Sighing, Pops continued, "I know, Toman, I know. I feared he would try something, though I didn't think it would be this quick. I have started looking into what we talked about earlier. I haven't yet found much, but I am still looking. I fear you will be there for a few days to heal." "That's okay, Pops. Maybe you could fill me in on the local customs so I don't make more mistakes?" I asked. "Yes, I think that would be a good idea. You seem to have enough trouble following you without inviting more," Pops replied. Then I felt Pops putting all he could into my mind about where we were and what to do. "Well," he started as it was a little overwhelming as I shut down, passing out again.